Jihadis are officially waging terrorist attacks faster than I can make videos about the attacks, faster than politicians and reporters can make excuses for the attacks, faster than Muslim organizations can call people Islamophobes for complaining about the attacks. We can't even take a few minutes to discuss one of these attacks, because by the time we figure out what happened and sit down for a discussion, there's breaking news of yet another terrorist attack. Since the frequency of these jihadi attacks is rapidly increasing while my free time is not increasing, I've been trying to figure out a way to speed up my responses. And I've realized that because the justification of jihad is always the same, the commands of Allah and the example set by Muhammad and his companions, there's really no need to put together a completely new video for each new attack. Instead, I can record a few short template videos that I can use over and over again to respond to the latest attacks. There are only a few kinds of jihadi attacks. There are attacks against non-Muslim military targets, attacks against non-Muslim civilian targets, attacks against other Muslim groups that the jihadis regard as heretical, and so on. So if I've got a template for each kind of attack, I can save myself a lot of time. As I'm recording this, various networks are reporting a suicide attack in Kabul. So let's see how my new streamlined template approach makes dealing with jihad much simpler and less stressful for all of us. But before we move on, I just need to say, Kabul, Afghanistan. At least 80 people have been killed and more than 260 have been wounded. ISIS. Shias. Sunni. All right, let's do it. Hearts are broken today as we watch footage of the deadly attack in Kabul, Afghanistan. Though the death toll may rise, sources report that at least 80 people have been killed and more than 260 have been wounded. Responsibility for the attack has been claimed by ISIS. As always, politicians, the media, and Muslim organizations are trying to shame us into silence by insisting that this attack in Kabul, Afghanistan had nothing to do with Islam because most of the victims were Muslims. But anyone who's read the Quran knows that in Surah 9, verse 73, Allah commands Muslims to wage jihad not only against unbelievers, but also against hypocrites, people who claim to be Muslims but haven't fully submitted to the teachings and example of Muhammad. Now, did the Muslims who launched the terrorist attack in Kabul, Afghanistan, target Muslims they regard as faithful, devout, obedient Muslims? No, they targeted Shias, whom they regard as hypocrites. Since the Quran commands Muslims to wage jihad against hypocrites, the only way to claim that Sunni attacks against Shias have nothing to do with Islam would be to claim that there's no connection whatsoever between what Muhammad did in 7th century Arabia and what Muslims do today. And this is an obviously absurd claim. Muslims pray 5 times a day. Why? Because Muhammad prayed 5 times a day, and the Quran calls Muhammad the pattern of conduct for Muslims in Surah 33, verse 21. So is it just a coincidence that both Muhammad and modern Muslims pray 5 times a day? Of course not. There's a direct connection. But the same Muhammad who commanded Muslims to pray 5 times a day also commanded Muslims to wage jihad against hypocrites. In Sunan ibn Majah, number 43, Muhammad also commanded Muslims to follow the teachings and conduct of the rightly guided caliphs. Why is this relevant? Well, Abu Bakr, Muhammad's closest companion and the first of the rightly guided caliphs, declared war on Muslims who deviated from orthodox practice. In Sahih al-Bukhari, Abu Bakr declared that if Muslims didn't pay their zakat properly, he was going to slaughter them. In Sahih Muslim, 6478, a man asks Muhammad, which generation of Muslims is best? Muhammad replies that his generation, the first generation, is the best generation of Muslims. Why is this bad? Well, the first generation of Muslims almost annihilated itself by butchering one another as hypocrites and apostates. The word Islam means submission. The goal of Islam is to bring everyone under submission to Allah. In the 7th century, Muhammad conquered Arabia in the name of Islam, and like a self-help guru sharing his 7 keys to success, Muhammad explained his key to victory so that future generations of Muslims would know how they too could be victorious. Muhammad proclaimed, "I have been made victorious with terror." So the terrorist attack in Kabul, Afghanistan far from having nothing to do with Islam, is exactly what we would expect from people who take Allah's command to wage jihad against hypocrites seriously and who take Muhammad as their pattern of conduct. So there we have it, a rapid response template for every instance of Muslim-on-Muslim violence. Seems kind of insensitive and callous of me to prepare responses to mass casualties ahead of time, but I figured if Westerners really cared about all the people who are being slaughtered in the name of Allah, we'd probably be trying to protect them by challenging the ideology that calls for their deaths, instead of protecting and promoting the ideology that calls for their deaths, not to mention our deaths. Until we start to care, I guess I'll stick with heartless templates so that at least I can keep up with the jihadis.